Morning, everyone. Welcome to A Course in Miracles Friday morning group. My name is Lisa Natoli, and I'm so grateful to be here. And today, I am super excited and grateful to be introducing Irene Tomkinson. And I'm going to be introducing her a little more formally later. She is going to be talking today about your beliefs. And that really is the basis, in my mind, of A Course in Miracles. So I'm just going to be here just giving announcements and opening up for starters. And welcome live streamers. And I wanted to just open up. I was thinking about you, David Tomkinson, this morning, how David used to tell me on a pretty regular basis that he liked that I opened up the Friday morning groups with a little recap of what is A Course in Miracles. And he said, even though I've heard that talk over and over and over and over, because I would do it every Friday because there would always be new people in the group, and I wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page, that we kind of knew intentionally why we were here and what is A Course in Miracles. So I thought this morning that I wanted to just give a little brief overview of what is A Course in Miracles. And I know everybody here in this room, so I know everyone in this room knows what A Course in Miracles is. But it's a systematic mind training to train your mind to know the truth of what you are. So I just wanted to ask right now, who here or online has a pain, a problem, or a difficulty right now? Raise your hands. Okay, not everybody, only half the group. So same online, just do you have a pain, a problem, or a difficulty? And the way I love to teach and what I encourage as a teacher is to not be spiritual about these kinds of questions. Like if you really are experiencing something, to just say yes, because then you can work with that. You can't work with like, no, I'm not a body, I don't have a problem, if you think you have a problem. Now, if you really know you don't have a problem, you really don't have any difficulties, then that's the honest answer. So right in that place where you are experiencing the pain, the problem, or the difficulty is where A Course in Miracles begins. It always begins right in the place where you are, where you think you have a pain, a problem, or a difficulty. And then what it does is it takes you through steps to see and observe the beliefs. That's why today's great. I love when I asked you, Irene, what your topic is, because that goes along exactly with what I'm expressing right now, is that it gives you a practice to remain in the stillness, in the quiet, and observe all this activity. That's A Course in Miracles. And what we do here as humans is try to change the thought or the belief or the sensation. We try to move the problem. We try to get rid of the pain. And as you have probably discovered, it doesn't work. But when you can have a practice of standing in your true identity, which is pure light, and you just are the observer. You are observing all of this activity. So I'll just give you a little story. Like, we're getting ready to go to Mexico. I have a healing retreat that's next Friday, and my friend Mariella is going to be there. She's a yoga instructor, and I just haven't been moving the body very much over the last many months. It's been winter, and I have a tendency to hibernate when it gets cold. So I'm thinking about this retreat and yoga every morning at 8 o'clock. And I'm thinking, I better start stretching. I want to get a little bit prepared. So I got my yoga mat out, and I've been doing stretches at home, and I quickly became aware of how tight everything is, how my left side is different than the right side. The left leg doesn't move with the same flexibility as the right. So I was starting to just practice a little bit, not pushing myself, but suddenly I had this excruciating pain in my back. And I thought I could locate it, like it was on the right side. I thought it was in my spine. I told Bill about it. He checked it out. We were like, is it the spine or is it the muscle? And I'm trying to like move it out. And the practice of A Course in Miracles is just to become aware and observe what the mind is doing. That's it. So you welcome the pain. So at first I was trying to get rid of it. And then the mind was like, oh my God, I'm going to be in so much pain next week. Like we futurize. But there's a practice now where you really can just allow the stillness to watch all this activity. And then I asked myself, can I just let it be? What if it never goes away? To be okay with that. And if you don't touch the thing, the belief, the thought, the sensation, it does disappear. And I don't even know when it went, but all of a sudden it just disappeared. And I said to Bill, oh, it's gone. Like I didn't do anything except remain in the stillness. So to me, that's the training of A Course in Miracles. It's in a book. It has 365 workbook lessons. And what I know from my years of teaching is many people who have the book are still trying to change the thought. They're still trying to get rid of the pain or the problem or the difficulty. And I just really want to encourage everyone just to really look again at what it says. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Who you are doesn't have a pain. It doesn't have a problem. It doesn't have a difficulty. Light is. God is. And you in the stillness can remain as your true nature, to remain as the identity of this all-encompassing light. So I am so happy that we have a community that we can join together and just remember these ideas and practice them and abide in them. So I don't have any announcements except for the healing retreat next week in Mexico starts on Sunday night. I have 2 beds available in shared rooms. So if anybody's watching this online or if anybody's here in this room and you want to just make a spontaneous trip to Mexico with us, it's going to be an amazing week together. You can contact me at lisa@lisanatoli.com. If you're here in this room, you can come and see me. And Bill, do we have any other announcements?
We have 4 tickets available for the Boston conference.
Okay, we have 4 tickets available for the ACIM Boston conference in May. teachersofgod.org. Write an email to info@teachersofgod.org if you'd like to get one of those tickets. And there's just so many awesome things happening at the Teachers of God Foundation. So there's lots of online programs, and you can check all of that out at teachersofgod.org. So I would like for us now to take this moment to greet each other in love. This is a time where we really just see each other and acknowledge the light that you are. We say, I love you like crazy.
Leave the mic on. Can't forget the name.
That's your art. Is it for sale? Well, it's part of the new collection. Yeah, it's really nice. That was David. Ah, sweetheart. Miss Maggie. Yeah, I mean, I don't know when I go outside. I love you guys. Okay, welcome back. So I am very happy to be bringing up Bonnie Kimball, who's going to be doing our Cafe Gratitude talk this morning. We have Linda Dunath on the camera, shining the light. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Linda. Come on up.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Hello, love streamers. I won't be on the camera for a while, but we have Linda, and she's learning, and we're very grateful for her. So I just want to take a minute to Lisa. I loved your little story about pulling your back out, because I'm on week 3 of your healing cure, and it was like we're supposed to go out into the world, and anything that happens to us, pain or any kind of suffering, or if we're mad at somebody, we're just supposed to envelop it in our holiness and not wish for anything different. That's what I was thinking. Lisa, did you envelop it in your holiness? But I love how we always have these reminders. It's fun. And so I'm doing the reading of the Cafe Gratitude. And it's actually from July. I didn't really like the February one today. I wasn't identifying with it. And so I just decided to, yeah. Yes, I decided to open it up, and it came to this spot in July. And I do love it. It says, real generosity toward the future lies in giving all to the present. And I'll say it again. Real generosity toward the future lies in giving all to the present. And that's where we're supposed to be anyway. And that's where we feel the best. That's where we heal the best. That's where we love the best. Is right here in the present. And it's July 14th. Feel the warmth, feel the warmth. So, and Arthur's at the beach in his bare toes. So the bottom part, it says, what do you teach? And I like that. What do you teach? And I hope that I'm teaching love and compassion. And listening. And listening. Because I have a little story on the listening. Because, we're all a little bit attached to our cell phones because they do everything. I have everything on my cell phone. It takes pictures and, Facebook, all the social media and texting and calling and my news. And so I took my son and his wife to the airport the other morning. And on the way, I thought, well, maybe I'll listen to Lisa on my way home. And then I realized I didn't grab my phone. And it's like, oh, okay. So I dropped them off. And for the first time in 31 years, I took the wrong way out of the airport. And I don't know Boston. And so, I think even like 6 months ago, I would have panicked. I don't have my phone. I don't have GPS. Like, I'm going to get the GPS speeding through the tunnels anyway. I need to be like watching the road. So I didn't panic. I just said, "Oh, Spirit, you got to get me out of this one." and so I listened, and it just kept saying, I kept seeing a sign for South 93, and I thought, well, eventually I can get off of South 93 and get onto North 93. So I don't know how long it's going to take, what kind of tour I'm going to take, but whatever. And this one was a little tempting. It said Government Center, and I was like, no, I'll just stay with South 93. And as soon as I stayed there, the sign came up that said North 93, next exit. So I was off on North 93 under the Zakin Bridge, and it said Tobin Bridge, Route 1 North, and boom, I was there. And I was like, oh, it was a tiny detour. But somebody said maybe it was a test, but I don't know. I just, who knows? Who knows? I just trust. It's just trust. So that's what I'd like to teach, is trust. Okay. All right. Are you glad you gave me the microphone? Here we go. Thank you.
I'm totally glad I gave you the microphone, Bonnie. Thank you. That was awesome. Yeah, what are you teaching? You're teaching fear? Or are you teaching love? Or are you teaching trust? What are you teaching? And I love that story so much, Bonnie, because that really is it. Like, it's when I asked you this morning, do you have pain or problem or difficulties, things still are going to be happening around you. It's not like you wind up and have your version of what you think good looks like, but you recognize that you're the calm center in the middle of all of this activity, and it cannot touch you. And so I love those kinds of stories, Bonnie, because these are the things that happen every single day to each and every one of us. But you recognize that you have the power and the ability to stay in the I am. You have, and to laugh too, to say, Bonnie, well, maybe I'll end up going south for who knows, maybe you'll go to Cape Cod, wherever. Like, did you recognize, like, that's okay. So it is my extreme pleasure to introduce Irene Tomkinson. Irene Tomkinson is a friend of mine. She is a therapist. She is a spiritual counselor. She is a teacher. She's super funny, and she's bold. She's an adventurer. She's really somebody who is showing up as herself. And she has a childlike spirit, just a wonderment that shows up in everything that she does. And I wanted to read an email that David wrote a few days ago as part of your introduction, because it's so good. And I think it really, it's just beautiful. So yesterday was Valentine's Day, and David, you wrote this post on your Facebook wall. And David is Irene's, oh, no, I'm not going to tell you because that'll give the story away. Okay. A Valentine's story. In December of 1970, I was walking down St. Charles Street in Boston with a wonderful friend I had met the summer before. She was fascinating, smart, and pretty. We window shopped the Christmas decorated stores and boutiques while talking and laughing nonstop. I felt such a connection with her that I happily blurted out, I hope when we're 60 we can meet again and share how our lives have gone. We were 25 years old then. It has been 48 years since my wish more than came true. Irene, you are the best Valentine I could have ever wished for. I love you always and forever. Thank you, David, for that awesome message. Welcome, Irene Tomkinson.
I think he's got me on this, right?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, Reedy. Thanks, David. Good morning, everyone, or wherever you are. I guess you shouldn't say good morning when something's on the internet for eternity, right? Good morning, good night, good afternoon, good day, great year. You go up there forever. So it is. It's exciting and it's intimidating to be asked to lead these classes because it means so much to me. You know, this journey, this path, what we're all about, the intention that we set with each other. So I pray a lot about it, and it always seems like it comes at just the right and perfect time with stuff that I've been working on. I mean, I'm also an author, and writing is one of my truest delights. It is definitely one of the major ways that I connect to the light within me, to the darkness in me too. You know, it's one of the ways that I have the conversation in here. I believe in it so strongly. I teach it. Everybody I work with, I ask them to do it and try it. It's amazing how scary it is for people to have a conversation with themselves, right? So anyway, where I want to start with today is beliefs. And I always kind of go to the book and see, okay, I'll have an idea about what I want to talk about, and then I go to the book and I realize it's there, you know. There's another book I've been reading too, A Course of Love. Marie Perron is going to be at the conference also, and these two go so well together. Anyway, the essential goal of therapy, it's on page 133. When two people experience a dominant submission problem, it is often related to the perceived opposition between helping and being helped. This is a misperception resulting from the failure to recognize the equal worth of both individuals in the interaction. There can be no confusion on this point and no strain if this confusion is not introduced. Such confusion may be experienced by a person when someone else is trying to help them. He is likely to feel that this puts him in a subordinate position if he thinks he should be the therapist. Obviously, there's no problem once it's recognized that the equal worth of each person precludes this misperception, since both gain in such a transaction. It is impossible for anybody to ever lose anything when this is fully recognized. This is what recognizing your brother is all about. The prerequisites for therapy must include the following conditions. The procedure must involve the recognition rather than the denial of the importance of thought. The exact equality of everyone who is involved must also be recognized. This must include me. No one is either therapist or patient. You could be either the teacher or the pupil. Above all, everyone involved must want to give up everything that is not true. The reason for the negative emphasis here is that therapy implies something has gone wrong. Although the purpose of therapy is to correct this, those who are ill are negative. Therapy is exactly the same as all other forms of miracle working. It has no separate laws of its own. All of the principles that were given for miracles apply to therapy because unless therapy proceeds from miracle-mindedness, it cannot heal. And it goes on. It was on 133, 134, and it goes on. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It gives me justification for being a therapist and being up here, okay? I think what I heard with that is this idea that if we're having to change something, there must be something wrong with me. If I have to change my beliefs, there must be something wrong with me. I've been thinking incorrectly. So we can get really defensive if somebody is trying to show us another way to look at it. And yet the magical definition of miracle that Lisa and Bill taught me here in this room was that a miracle is when we change our perception about something, when we see it differently. And the only way we can ever see anything differently is if we can get out from behind our beliefs. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is where these beliefs come from. All right? They either come from our experiences or they come from what others tell us. Those are the only two places they come from. But one of the places that they come from, or the experiences that we have, is as a child. Much of what comes up for us from our childhood experiences. And here's why. When you are born into this world, obviously, the way we look at the world in the Course is one of the first big explosions of separation, right? You leave the womb in this comfortable place where everything was taken care of for you, and pop, you're out here, right? When the baby is being held by the mom or dad or whomever, the infant believes that the whole glob is it, right? It believes this whole glob is it. Then around 6 months, it starts doing this, like this, right? And what it's doing is it's getting the idea like, oh, I'm this glob and you're that glob. It's getting the idea of separation, autonomy, right? That's just a part of the process that we go through. And also, you know, then it goes toddler, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff that it learns, but I'm going to stick with this part. Then the one or the kid, big glob is giving this little glob food or not giving it food, giving it attention or not giving it attention. You are God in the universe. Whatever the big glob is becomes the God of this little munchkin. How could it not? You're the biggest glob it knows. You're the one it needs. Every child is born with 5 characteristics. This comes from Pia Melody. The first is, none is more important than the other. They're just, okay? Valuable. Every child is born valuable. Every human being on this planet is born valuable. Vulnerable. Every child is born vulnerable. Every child is born needy and dependent. Every child is born immature and imperfect. Now, you're probably word imperfect for a child. For what it means is, like a 1-year-old can't walk like a 2-year-old. A 2-year-old can't talk like a 3-year-old. You know, there's a learning to be here on the planet and how to function in these bodies that are ours, these ones that we have created. The immaturity is the cognitive ability or the emotional ability of a child, all right? If these are not honored for a child, if these are not honored, then what happens is we grow up skewed to one side or the other. That is, if our valuableness is not honored, then we grow up to feel less than. The 3 things a child needs are time, attention, and direction. Quality direction. So if we're not getting that, then what we feel is, I'm not good enough. Or we grow up feeling too much of that coming our way, the center of the universe. We get to become brats. I mean, you know what I'm saying, all right? Then we come up, I'm better than. Health is always, emotional health is always where somewhere down the middle. What we hear all the time, right? Moderation, somewhere down the middle. So if it's not honored, we grow up less than. If it's over honored, you know, it's made too big a deal of, we grow up feeling better than. But we constantly always have value. But it's mirrored to us by the way in which we're treated by our caregivers. Our vulnerability is always there. We're always vulnerable. I mean, how vulnerable is a munchkin, right? If the vulnerability is not honored, if the child is abused, neglected, okay, then what a child grows up either being as like a doormat, expecting that in the world, not expecting anything of value for them in the world, or becoming a bully, all armored off, seeing the world as a really, really harsh place and growing up walled off. Obviously, this takes time. It doesn't just happen, in moments. It happens over time. If our needs and dependencies aren't honored, then we either grow up telling ourselves the story that I don't have any needs, or we grow up like my needs will never be satisfied, constantly feeling empty in a hole that never can be filled. Is this making sense? If the immature, and it's always to the extremes I'm talking about, where we run into difficulty, it's never down the middle. If our immaturity, our imperfection is not honored, like, somebody's not acknowledging, well, you're being pushy because you're two, and that's what you should be doing it to, and that gets honored. And then it gets looked at and it gets taught, the child gets taught how to find their voice, but use an appropriate language, that's honoring it. If it doesn't get honored, or if they get allowed to run the whole roost and people accept unacceptable behavior, then what happens is there's no emotional growth. If the imperfection isn't honored, then people either grow up never giving anything a shot because it's way too scary to try stuff because you think you're supposed to know before you get there. Does that make sense? Or you take right over and you bumble through stuff and you just act as if. And you're not let yourself listen or grow or expand. You have this sense that you're supposed to know it before you get there. This is like the 5-minute version of teaching you this, all right? But the bottom line is, this is piece by piece, experience by experience, experience by experience over the years of your growth, right? And all of these ideas are up here. I must not be good enough. I must not be right enough. They're not paying attention to me. I'll go out of my way to get their attention, right? I'll jump up and down. I'll pull on them. I'll call to them. I'll act out with them. Or I must not matter. Can you all feel? We've all had those kind of experiences. But we use those experiences to start building up this idea that we're not okay because they didn't give us what we thought we needed. They didn't give us what we longed for. Another reason why we build up these ideas, I'll give the example of a child. Have you ever been at the grocery store or something and you can see a 3-year-old coming down the aisle screaming because they've lost their adult, whoever their adult is, their parent, right? And you can kind of see the parent down here. And if you wanted to talk the kid into going over there, they wouldn't let you touch him. They'd be screaming. They'd be hysterical, right? And the reason is because intuitively children know that their lives are completely dependent on this person. And without that God in their life, they're gone. They'll die. There's a terror that comes over them that's horrendous. So what children do subconsciously is they make themselves wrong instead of making the adults wrong. If I had an alcoholic parent, a child has an alcoholic parent who's not available for them, who's passed out or not responsive, not meeting their needs, not paying attention to them, the child says, I don't have those needs. I won't need that. Have you ever seen a little one who's acting way beyond their age? Not letting people help them, not letting people in. This belief, I have to do it myself. Because they want to protect the adult. They want to protect the adult who's not available for them. Because their life is dependent on that. I used to work with special needs children in daycare. And these special needs kids were emotionally, developmentally delayed for lots of reasons. But we had a set of twins. And we used to have to check this set of twins daily for cigarette burns. because that's how they used to get punished. So eventually it came to the time where we had to take these kids out of the house, which is the last thing that any social workers want to do, is take kids out of their family, right? And, you know, you would think, given they had kindness and they had good care at the daycare center, but when they went home to some pretty horrific stuff. So you would think that they would more than want it, right? And when we went to take the kids out of the house, they screamed and screamed and screamed and screamed and held on to the furniture and held on to what they know. It's what we all do. We hang on to what we know. We're terrified to let go. And that's what we're always being asked to do in these spiritual programs. Let go of what you know and go stand out here in what feels like blankness. From the very, very beginning, we've been hanging on to what we believed we knew. Familiar is what we call right. We get those two confused. You know what's familiar, we call that the right way. And the program is constantly, you know, the course is constantly asking us, step out of that. Step out of what you know. And just have a looking. I mean, weren't we taught that if you got a cramp, you better call the doctor? You can't make it worse. If you're moving around, you could be making that a whole lot worse, right? I mean, all kinds of stuff we've been told. And now, I had breast cancer, early stage, very blessed, you know, and the hardest thing about having this little bit of early stage breast cancer was going against what the doctor said. I did not want to take the chemicals. There was nothing in the literature that said that was going to do me any good. The percentages of what it was going to do for me was so ridiculously bad in the wrong directions. You know, and I said to the doctor, I know you're trying to do the very best you can. And this is not to tell anybody else not to do whatever they feel. But this is my story, right? But that scary, scary part. What's the matter, hon?
It feels like your microphone fell down.
Oh, here.
Whoop, don't move. You just want to touch me. Yeah. Oh, this little thing. Is that better?
Yeah, sure. Do you want me to take this? Okay. So, where was I? So anyway, I said, this is all you've got. And he said, it is. And I said, I don't want it. So I'm not going that route. And, you know, obviously no one's going to stop me, right? The place that I knew I didn't want it was not in the beliefs. It was in the knowing. There's a huge, huge difference between the beliefs and the knowing. The knowing comes from your core, from your center. You just know it. Even though everything up here is going, oh my God, they all say you should do this. This is what everybody does. You know, wear pink and go take the drugs. And it's like, my knowing just kept saying, no, that's not for you. That's not for you. That's not your choice. It's very, very hard to change those beliefs, to go into and trust your knowing. I believe from the bottom of my heart and my experiences that if I'm clean and sober, I'm not under the influence of drugs or alcohol, I can trust what my gut is telling me. And I also know for me, this is all about for me, not for anybody else, is that my gut will keep whispering. It'll keep saying, hello, hello, are you listening yet? Are you listening yet? That was huge for me when I recovered from alcoholism, because I had heard for a couple of years from my gut, you've got a problem with alcohol, Irene. I didn't want it. I didn't want it. It was what I knew and trusted. I believed it was what was keeping me safe. I believed it was what was giving me courage. I believed it was what was relaxing me. I didn't want to let it go. And yet this gut kept saying, you got a problem with alcohol. You got a problem with alcohol. That process, that changing, that looking beyond your beliefs, is a bunch of little munchkins outside. That's what they're all looking at. They're cute as buttons. So moving from here into this, into soul, is a huge journey for all of us. Because also those little ones, when they arrived with tah-dah, which is, I believe, my word for Christ consciousness. They believe with tah-dah. They love themselves. They loved themselves. They had no reason not to until they got taught not to, until they bought into these rules, until these beliefs. They bought into those. And we've all seen children. We know how we changed. We know the ideas that we had about ourselves that came from others. They didn't come from here. Is this making sense? Yeah. Coming from this place before we come from this place is really hard work. We have spent so much of this is what the Western world trusts. The Western world trusts this, the head, the logic, the data, right? And if it's not physical, it can't be real. And the Course says just the opposite, right? The Course of Love says the same thing. We need to come from here, and then this will follow. You should do the exact same thing about what I'm saying, or any teacher that's up here. Listen from your gut. Listen from your heart. If this feels like truth to you, look at it. If it doesn't feel like truth to you, turn off your computer. You're the one who's your best teacher. This is where we start unity. Wholeness is when we come into what we know. I've said this before here. Little ones learn how to walk because they trust their gut. They don't say, oh, well, everybody else is walking. I can't walk as well as they can. I'll wait. I'll wait till nobody's in the room, right? Because I don't want to look like a fool. They just go do it. They just go do it. They try it on until somebody tells them it's not okay for you to make a mistake. It's not okay for you to be imperfect. It's not okay for you to be immature. You're supposed to know it before you get there. And as parents, we spend so much of our time trying to make it all pain-free for our kids and giving them our beliefs. I've written 2 books. My first book is called Not Like My Mother, Becoming a Sane Parent After Growing Up in a Crazy Family. So I was the oldest in a family where a lot of violence and a lot of craziness. Anyway, I was given a lot of tasks or responsibilities that were age inappropriate. And I swore when I had kids I was going to do it very, very differently. Very differently. I was going to be the mom I always wanted, right? So I did a lot for my kids. Too much. You know, instead of like helping them type their papers, I was writing their papers. You know, if nobody was helping me, you know, not just being a bulldozer because it was going to be pain-free. And just doing and doing and doing and doing until we ended up in family counseling. And one of my daughters says to the counselor, my mother doesn't believe in me. She does everything for me. She doesn't think I'm capable. I was stunned. You got that out of my behavior? That's what you got out of my behavior? That I didn't believe in you? I was so trying to protect her, have her life be so carefree, be able to have so much more play in her life. But I was so busy being the mom I wanted. Being the mom I wanted, I wasn't being the mom she needed. Because I was so in my experience. I was so in my story. I was so in my beliefs. My 8-year-old wrote some rules about what a good mother does. I was so wrapped up in history that I couldn't be current. And if I couldn't be current, I couldn't see what she needed. I was so projecting it all out there, me, onto her. Does that make sense? Yeah, the parents are nodding. Okay, anybody have any questions or any thoughts?
There's a couple of questions in the chat.
Sure.
Where's the mic?
It's up there.
Here.
Anyone here have questions before we go to the chat?
Just have a quick comment.
Nancy?
Sure.
Wait,
Oh,
please.
sorry.
No, you.
With regard to what you were just describing about how as parents we operate to fix everything that was wrong with us, I love the phrase that I was driving with my rear view mirror.
Oh, absolutely.
Like I was looking behind me and I was fixing what was behind now. Yeah, while it's falling apart.
Exactly. Right. That's a great saying.
Yes, there was a couple of comments and questions in the chat.
Sure.
It says, beliefs can also be, from Sharon, beliefs can also be energetically taken on in the mother's womb. I am not wanted. You have something to say about that?
That's just been shown in research to be absolutely true. Right. Or fear, terror. I mean, it's all vibration. And absolutely. And I do some body-centered trauma work and stuff with people. And it's just been amazing what's come out of people from utero. But yeah, that's true. So take a deep breath, but still the value is always there. And the connection to the divine, your gut is there. And we have to learn how to listen to that. And if we're being overwhelmed with fear or rejection and not seeing our value, that's just incorrect. When it's coming from love, it's coming from the truth. When it's not coming from love, when it's coming from fear, it's not the truth. That's totally, totally what I know in my heart, in my being. But absolutely. It still does not make us healable. It still doesn't mean that we can't be healable no matter when it started. We're constantly able to heal because we're constantly able to see it through the eyes of Christ energy, through a different perception.
Thank you. There was one more. David said, every belief has a lie in the center. David Fishman.
Yeah, that's
Love
true.
you, David.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Okay, did someone here have something they wanted to say? No? All right. There's this woman, her name is Janet Connor, and I love her books, okay? They're books of writing. She has one called The Lotus and the Lily. We did this as a book here in church at Unity. She calls it the wisdom of the Buddha and Jesus. And one of the things that she said in the book, and I looked all over to try to find out where she got this. She's also a medium. I think it's her stuff, so I don't know who to give credit to, but this makes so much sense to me. The soul needs 5 things. I think this is from Buddhist teachings. It needs to connect to source. It needs to commit to values. It needs to serve a purpose, express itself, and create. And when I look at that, when I think of soul, I think of that core, that center of us, and that when we're coming from this place, we are connected to source. When we're committing to values that belong to us and not beliefs that we've taken on from someone else, we can feel that groundedness in that. We can totally feel that groundedness in that. When we're serving the purpose that is ours, we get enlivened, we get infused, we feel the energy, even if we're overtired. We can feel good, when we're pushing the canoe up the stream of life rather than going with it. We're deflated, we're exhausted, it's too much, it's too hard. That's when we're all full of our shoulds. There's something really clean, like when we're listening with this, when we're listening with this core, when we're not expressing, when we're putting the lid on it, when we're not listening to hear and saying what this needs to be said. Does anybody have anything inside that you wish you could say out loud, but you're holding on to really, really tightly? What's that costing you? Is there someone you need to speak up to? Do you need to speak up to yourself? Does that make sense? If we can feel that struggle inside, this is the big separation. The big separation is in here. Once we get this connected, this becomes connected. It can't be anything but connected. Beliefs can keep us so totally separate. Yes?
I want to clarify what I thought I heard you say. It sounded to me like you said that when something wants to be said, you need to say it. And I feel that might be a misnomer, because a lot of times the mind will tell us we need to say something and express it, and we only need to stop and notice the energy, just notice the belief and give no energy to it, give no attention to it, but just own it for ourselves. Because a lot of times we'll have a thought about someone else that might be hurtful to someone else, and it's really only for me. It doesn't mean I need to say it.
When I say it could be like writing it. It could be looking at it. It could be hearing yourself with it, okay? Just hearing it. Because I'll give you an example. I totally agree with you. I didn't mean you go attack people with it and shout it out, okay? Just own it. But just letting it rattle around in your brain is usually not a good way to own it, because it'll just keep spinning and spinning and spinning. But to bring it out into the light so that you can take a look at it. At the beginning of the year, I did this exercise where I created a mandala for myself for the coming year, and it's kind of an intention of how I want to live the coming year. That also comes from a book this woman wrote. Anyway, so you look at the feelings. It's different than making a vision board. It's like looking at the feelings on what do you want more of in the coming year, and then you look at what do you want less of. So one of the things that I knew was I wanted less anxiety. The last couple of years, I've had more anxiety than I've known myself to have. I mean, I didn't need medication, but there was that uncomfortable kind of, just rattling around in me. So I started to look at the anxiety. So I started to write, like Lisa was saying, just embrace the anxiety and look at the anxiety. And when I realized that there's always a message underneath it, I truly believe this is my core saying you need to look at this. Don't run from it, own it. So as I wrote about it and looked at it, what I got was, I am afraid of aging. I'm scared of it. I'm 73, and I've said this before. People say, 40 is the new 30 and 50 is the new 40. Well, 80 is the same old damn old, and that's the big one down the road. And when I look at that and I can see it like, holy cow, it just is scary. It's stepping into an unknown, because I got a lot of beliefs about what aging means and how 80 is supposed to look or 75 is supposed to look. So I had to look at those beliefs and write those beliefs out. What do I believe? I believe I'm supposed to be living in a one-story house because you can't do stairs, and you better get handrails everywhere, and you won't. And definitely don't do the, and you can't work, but I could start feeling all this stuff flooding up, and you look in the mirror and it's like, oh my God, what happened? What happened? But as I wrote it and owned it, I realized the myth in a whole lot of that. That's what I mean by express it, by looking it right in the face. And it started to dissipate. And then I realized what I wanted was more trusting of the process. So this is my year. The year of 2019 is my year to trust and rely more. In AA, we say trust and rely on God. And just know, there's been all kinds of unknowns we've had to walk into, and they've all been fine. And there's no problem with today. And today's the only one I've got, right? But getting a tolerance and moving into the unknown is really scary. And so what do we do when we're standing in unknown? We want to grab onto beliefs. We want to grab onto what's familiar. We want to hang on really, really tight. And that's the time when we really need to start letting go so we can explore. Because another word that came up for me was I want to expand. I had a mentor years and years ago who said, and I was in my 30s when I heard him, so I thought, oh, that's nice for old people. But he said, salmon, at the end of their lives, take their biggest adventure. They go upstream. And they take the biggest adventure of their lives. And he said, what we need to live that way because as humans, we live smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller the older we get. Because we allow fear and the old stories that we're too old, it's not going to work, we're kind of broken, we're going to get more broken, just smaller and smaller. And we really need to be doing this because we got less to lose. We got a whole lot less to lose, right? And now I know what he was talking about. I totally know what he was talking about. Because there's this other knowing that I have now that I didn't have when I was younger, and that is I like the inside of my 73-year-old self more than I've ever liked me before. Probably not since I was that little munchkin that came out onto the planet. I know my value in here more and more and more. And that relationship, when I get away from what the mirror says and I get into what's inside here, there's that connectedness where I know that I'm with the divine energy. I know it's flavors of it. I want more of it. It feels really, really good when you have those moments. And those moments usually come in stillness or they come in play. They come in silliness. They don't come in, ain't it awful? They don't come in, oh, this is hard. They don't come in, let me bang my head against the wall just one more time. They come in like a lightness and a silliness that really isn't about paying the bills. It's more about just being silly and playing. And when we get out from underneath this should, there's such a sense of freedom. So what I want you to do, and you can do this at home with a paper and pen, I want you to talk to a partner. I want you to pair up with someone. And I want you to tell this other person something that you gained or didn't gain or disagree with what I've been saying this morning. You're going to get like 4 minutes. One's going to get 2. The other's going to get 2. Ready, set, go. Grab someone. Start owning your stuff. And what you can do at home is you can just journal some of this. Something that I said that doesn't work for you, something that I said that maybe you gain from. What do you think your soul might need right now? Yes. Should I turn this off? Can you turn it off?
Lynn says, handing over to Holy Spirit works only when I remember to. Lynn says, owning, processing parental guilt / worry issues. And Elizabeth said, thank you for this talk. I am also 73 and a retired teacher. I love children because they teach me something every time I am with them. And your remarks have inspired me so much, and I am so grateful to be able to listen to you today. That's Elizabeth. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Is this needs to go back on? Yeah. So I'm asking Art to come up. Arthur. He had some interesting insights, and God knows we love to hear from him, right? Here, go ahead.
Well, we don't know if they're interesting. That's our interpretation. I was talking to Irene about a belief. If I can drop one belief, release one belief, I can release all beliefs. Because all beliefs stem from the one belief that I'm either separate or that I die. So why wait till the body rests permanently to drop my beliefs? Die now. Yes. Die now. Yes. Die now and live in presence. Is it okay if I use what you talked about as an example?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So Irene said she's been experiencing more anxiety than she has or wants to. So she wants to experience less throughout the year. When I do that, I've left presence. I'm resisting the present moment. And as soon as I resist the present moment, I create the separate self, my stick figure, and I go seeking to change the presence. So when we die now, we are present. Because a belief is a thought that all those people taught us that we've held on to. The tah-dah, the little baby, knows itself. Then we're taught who we're not. And to love ourselves, we need to know ourselves. And at our age, most of us first learn who we're not to know who we are.
So tell us about what it means to you to say to die now. Like real specific kind of examples.
Driving up here today, I felt my right to the road was impeded, and I reacted to it from the separate self. And I laughed. I let it sit with me, and it stayed with me for a long time, the right here, that heaviness, because it was an emotion. And just sitting with it, I couldn't close my eyes and really go into it deep, but I could sit with it. And it was funny because it went like from the whole chest, it just slowly became just this little spot. And the next thing I know, I was singing and dancing. Recognition. Mm-hmm. That's how we die now. We recognize beliefs aren't true, and they aren't who we are. And it's okay to learn and know who we are.
Thank you. Anybody else want to share? Someone else want to share? Come on. You all have something to offer. Do you want to say something? Yay. You sure? Bill does.
Yeah, I want to expand on that. I love what you're sharing today, and I love the way that we sort of show up as what we're not. The tah-dah gets veiled by the personal self-identity. And what Arthur just shared is that quiet presence that it doesn't seek or desire to change anything because it knows itself, and it's from that self shining on the experience that all experience is dissolved and resolved back into the tah-dah. So we need do nothing. That's what the Course means when it says, I need do nothing. It means relax back into the tah-dah. I love the tah-dah being the Christ consciousness and Christ presence. But it's that easy. And it's that easy for everyone has the same ability. It's like in the, in Genesis, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth and gave his creation, created us in his likeness, his image and his likeness, and gave us dominion over all things. That tah-dah, that relaxing into the stillness, is the dominion. That's the dominion where all time and space and objects of experience are dissolved back into the presence of I am, or tah-dah. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks. Thank you. Anyone else want to share? Come, Martha. Come here. Da 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 da. Come on.
Hi, I'm Martha. No, nothing really to share. I thought when you were talking about the tah-dah, and then you talked about people spending a lot of time, and I thought I heard from that side of the room somebody say data, data. Is that so? I just sort of picked up on that. Is that something that so that when we're in our tah-dah, we can look at the ideas or the data, and then it dissolves back into the tah-dah. So it just sort of switches the syllable. So that's all.
I love it.
I didn't know if that was part of your teaching and if that was what you were, or if I just heard it.
You just heard it and you just gave it to us.
So the tah-dah, you look at the.
So take the D out of dada. Oh, put that T, right. Just right. I get it. A T-shirt. You've just created a T-shirt. Love it. Love it. So there's one thing I want to, when Bill was talking, and I loved what he had to say, and I totally know it to be truth. All right. And then I think about a client that I just had in my office the other day who was in there with her 16-year-old who tried suicide. So what is she supposed to do? It's very, very difficult to not act. It's very difficult not to want to take control. It's very difficult not to want to change things. We're constantly in this place of what is ours to do? What are we responsible for? And I know for me, I guess what I'm responsible for is a lot more pausing before I go into action. A lot more listening and a lot more pausing. I was such a reaction machine for so long. Because there were so many beliefs that were pushing it. Like I had the list and I go to the list. Oh yeah, well I got to do this. Yeah. Well I got to do that. Yeah. Well I got to do this. Right. This is the way it's supposed to look. Rather than just stopping and pausing. And what I get to do as a therapist and a spiritual coach is to maybe help the mom learn that her daughter has come as much for her as a teacher as she thinks that she needs to be her daughter's teacher. There's a whole lot for everybody to learn. But I can't take away her fear and her terror that she can lose her daughter. It was her second attempt, and helping her to open up to look at what may be wrong, what's not working on both sides. But I just want to say that to all of you out there too, and that is that this stuff's not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. Because there's so much around us that feeds us into the beliefs and the tah-dah. That for the quietness and the taking a breath is like just so incredibly vital. So, so important. And you can do it in just a moment. It doesn't have to be brilliance. It doesn't have to be going away for a week. It could be just stopping in the grocery store and taking a breath. What am I supposed to do here? Just slowing down. The answers are inside of us. So in my journey, in my spiritual journey, we're going to skip Maslow right now. There's this prayer that AA gave me. And the prayer is the Serenity Prayer. And it goes, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. Everything outside of me. The courage to change the things I can, me, and the wisdom to know the difference. I love this prayer. I say it probably 35 times a day because it's a pausing prayer. It makes me stop, right? I'm not the boss of you or the world or whatever it is. And when I get calm in here, when I pay attention to in here, that's all going to change anyway. Right? But it doesn't whip me around anymore as much as it used to. So I need to learn to come from here way, way more and kind of list this stuff out and say, do I really believe that? Is that still my belief? Is that still working for me? And it's not. Most of the time, it's not. There was an innocence that I know that I had spiritually as a child that I am returning to in a much more profound way as an old lady, and I love it. You know, just knowing that there really is something special out there. The Camino was great for me for that. The last day of the Camino, I left on my own. I left the group behind, and I went out into the dark, and the path was into some deep woods before it came out. It was the very last walk. And so I told myself, all right, if it gets too scary, I'll just turn around. I'm not going to make this, like ridiculous. I want to enjoy the last walk. But there was something in me that kept saying, go, you need to do this by yourself. So I went and I stepped into the woods, and for a good hour before the sun really started to light everything up, I felt that I was surrounded by the presence. I was definitely aware, but there was I would no more go into the woods in my backyard in the middle of the night than I would shoot myself. Because there'd be like, all right, what's behind? All right, what's there? I mean, I would have heard everything. And I was in such peace and presence. I felt so surrounded by whatever is. And I felt so young in that. So grateful. And it was just an hour, but it was probably one of the best hours of my life. So that's what I have to share with you all today. And thank you very much for listening. Here you go. Ta-da!
Isn't she awesome? She's exactly what David said. She's pretty and funny and adventurous.
And not 26.
You are 26, though.
All right, always 26, right?
Thank you so much. We are going to make a circle and close in prayer. So thank you all for being here. Thank you, live streamers, for joining us. If anybody would like to support this Friday group with a donation, we very much appreciate it. We have a box in the back there. There's a donation button on. I'm not sure if a donation button is on there, but you can go to the Teachers of God website, teachersofgod.org. And every little bit that you give does make a big difference. It helps us to pay for this space here at Unity on the River. It helps us to pay for the live stream. And we bless the tithes and offerings with the Unity blessing. Divine love me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. So closing your eyes, taking a deep breath. Just really bringing yourself into the stillness, into this presence, into your tah-dah, which is the Christ, the light that you are. Without your beliefs, without your thoughts, you realize that you are a light that heaven gratefully acknowledges to be its own. You are this light. You are this love. You are pure presence. And you have been given the power on earth and in heaven to extend this light and allow it to flow. And even this is a non-doing. You do not even need to extend this light. You simply are no longer blocking it with your fears and your beliefs and your thoughts of yourself as a body. So I give thanks for this space. I give thanks for Irene for being the true expression of this light in authenticity and spontaneity and joy. And I love this reminder to just show up as that child, as a tah-dah. And we allow this light to carry us now. And we acknowledge that we are safe. We are surrounded by the peace of God, which is what we are. And we give thanks and say amen.